I will start in 3, 2, 1. So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 6 and we will be presenting about education in the post-pandemic era. Before we move into the presentation, let me introduce myself. My name is Farhan Hussein, and I will introduce the member of group. The first one is Nabila Putri Latifah, and the second one is Glory Maria, and the third one is Karini Ramadian, and the last one is Aira Junior. And now let's move into the first presenter, Nabila Putri Latifah. You may deliver your materials now.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Okay. Thank you, moderator, for time. Let me introduce myself. My name is Nabila Putri Latifah. Here I will discuss about the impact of the pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic had a fairly serious impact in various fields, one of which is the field of education. The learning process, which is usually carried out directly and face-to-face, has now turned into distance learning and utilizing online learning applications so that teaching and learning activities can run smoothly. Initially, distance learning was quite difficult to implement. This is because teachers and students are not used to carrying out virtual learning activities and using application in learning activities. However, over time, everything becomes under control and can adapt again. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Nabila. And let's move into the
Yeah.
next presenter. For Glory Maria, you might deliver your presentation.
Thank you. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic that occurred in Indonesia, the government issued a policy, namely implementing the process of learning from home at various levels of education. With the closure of schools, students cannot interact with their friends and teachers directly. The COVID-19 pandemic requires schools to carry out online learning. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Glory. Let's move into the next presenter. For Karini Ramadian, you can start now.
Thank you to the moderator for giving me the opportunity to continue explaining the material. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Karini Ramadian. I'm really sorry I asked permission to not open the camera because I have a problem with a back signal in here. Alright, without wasting time on this slide, I will explain what are the positive impacts that we can take from online learning during the COVID-19 pandemic era. The first is learning becomes more practical. It is true that this is in accordance with the fact that online learning is easier than usual learning activities. Because as we know, as students, so far we only need to prepare a handphone and internet quota for attend or Zoom or Google Meeting, and so that we can also send all assignment on time to the teacher. Of course, we don't spend a lot of energy and time to go to school to carry out learning activities as usual, like going to school from morning until evening. We should not do that on online learning. So in conclusion, indeed, the positive side of online learning is that it is much more practical and easier. And next, the second, students become more careful in interacting. I think about this, it is meant that because of the coronavirus, of course, our daily habit and activities will change too, especially when it comes to interacting with other people. During the last 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemics, we must always obey to health protocols, which forces us all to keep our distance from other people and have to wear masks every time we go out of the house. And in my opinion, the online learning that we have experiences so far is useful in this kind of case. In fact, it turned out that if we think further, online learning can minimize the transmission of COVID-19. Then the last, gaining new knowledge in the use of online learning application and the use of information technology. Yes, because online distance learning, which we have experiences for 2 years, requires us to become more knowledgeable and capable in technology-related education. Even before the COVID-19 pandemic, all of us as students did not expect that online learning, teaching, and learning activities would occur, can happen. At first, we all didn't really know what a Zoom meeting or Google meeting was, but because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we all got to know about that, and it has become a habit to use both applications. During online learning activities, we are also required to be able to use like Microsoft Word or Microsoft PowerPoint and other applications to support learning activities. Well, maybe that's all I can say. I return to the moderator.
Thank you, Kareni. So let's move into the last presenter. For Aira Junior, you can start the materials.
Okay, thank you for the moderator. My name is Aira Junior Mutiara Halim, and I will explain the material about negative impact by COVID-19 in the education sector. For the first is learning to readapt or adapt again. Although the pandemic is over and learning activities will be carried out as usual before the pandemic existed, students must learn to adapt again. At the beginning of the meeting, some students may feel nervous about the number of friends who come because they are not used to the situation. It is natural that students still feel afraid to shake hands or get close to other people without thinking about whether they will get the COVID-19 virus or not. Therefore, the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic is not as easy as we imagine. And then the second is, students don't understand the learning material. Because online learning makes it difficult for students to ask directly when there is material that is not understood. The limited communication between teachers and students makes it difficult for students to learn. Therefore, at this time, students should not only focus on the learning provided by the teacher. They must be active in searching and learning independently so that students can better understand the material being studied. With a limited understanding of the learning material, students will have difficulty in undergoing the process of learning activities in the classroom. Students like repeating from the beginning to catch up. And the last is decreased learning outcomes. The implementation of online learning has a negative impact on students' learning outcomes. The decline in student learning outcomes can be caused by student lack of understanding of the material delivered by the teacher, decreased learning interest, and learning motivation. Student interest and motivation to learn can decrease due to several factors, such as the unstable internet network during the activity process, the distraction they experience while learning, and the fatigue and boredom they experience while learning. I guess that's all that I can give presentations for the material. I'll give it back to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you for Aira Junior, and thank you for all the presenter of today's presentation. And now I will read out the conclusion and also closing today's presentation. So the conclusion is that every implementation of policies and curriculum in the post-pandemic era has its own advantage and disadvantage. And we as a student, we have to participate in revitalizing the education in Indonesia. We can help by giving critiques and advice to the government or education ministry so that everyone and every institution can cooperate together in helping us to prevent pandemic and also to be able to adapt into a new situation. And that will be the end of our presentation. Thank you for listening. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.